Okay, so I'm ready for the first lesson in week 6. And I think this one should be really exciting because there's really only one topic and the assignment goes really fast. You're just adding on these derivative formulas at the bottom of your formula sheet for inverse trig functions. And you'll notice they only list 3 of them. But remember that cosine is just a negative of sine, and cotangent is the same formula as tangent, just with a negative, and cosecant is the same formula as secant, just with a negative. So even though they're not all listed on here, you do have all of them if you just remember that those are just the negatives. So all you're doing is everything that we've already learned, just using those new formulas. So as long as you start to memorize those and learn them, then this is pretty simple. So I just picked 2 problems, and the first one is if the function is inverse secant or arc secant of 5x, to find the derivative. And so if we look at the formula for secant, it's just 1 over x times the square root of x squared minus 1. And this is assuming you're taking the secant of just x. So anytime you have something else in there, then the chain rule would apply, which is why I put chain rule out here to remember that that 1's going to change into something else if you need to use the chain rule. So we're going to look here, and yes, indeed, we need to use the chain rule. So instead of having 1 on top, I'm just going to put the derivative of whatever that is. And the derivative of 5x is just 5. So that goes on the top. That's chain rule done. And then if I look at the formula on the bottom, is just whatever this function is, which is the absolute value of whatever's in there. So that's 5x. And then times the square root of whatever's in there, 5x all squared minus 1. And so that follows that formula. And then, like I said, if you enter just that, it's going to count it as correct. But of course, we could simplify this a little bit if we want. That 5 is going to cancel with that 5 because the absolute value of 5 is just 5. So those would cancel there. I'm still going to leave the absolute value on the x. And so this would now be 1 over, and then the absolute value of x. And then if I want to, I can actually square that and make it 25x squared minus 1. However, either answer would be correct. And so it doesn't really matter. And then as hard as I saw them get is maybe something like this. And that's where we're going to have to do the product rule because we have 2 functions. And one of them happens to be an inverse function. So it brings something that we've already learned, the product rule, in with something new, which is our inverse rules. And this time we're going to be using inverse cosine, which is just this with a negative. So negative of this. So that's the formula we're going to use. And then we're also going to use the product rule. So product rule would go like this. We take, to find the derivative, we would take the derivative of the first function, and that would be 2x times this function unchanged. So that would be arc cosine of 2x. And then we would add the first function unchanged, so that's x squared times, and then the derivative of this, which is normally negative 1 over, but remember that chain rule applies. So instead of the 1 on top, we're going to do the derivative of 2x. So that means I'm going to put a negative 2 over, and then it is the square root of 1 minus, and then the function squared. So in this case, that would be 2x all squared. And if I want to, I could just leave this just like that. No big deal. I could maybe simplify this a little bit and multiply all that and put it on top and then multiply that out on the bottom. So probably the best this is going to get is 2x inverse cosine 2x plus, and then if I put all that on top, well, that would probably be a minus actually, but I'll put negative 2x squared over the square root of 1 minus 4x squared. And then of course, a lot of times on Newton, they're going to rationalize the denominator. So they're going to multiply all of that by like the square root of 1 minus 4x squared. And you can do all of that. But this right here is a great answer. And so you're welcome to stop whenever you would like. once you have the calculus part done. And that is really all there is in the first lesson. So I hope that helps.